Hey y'all, today we are going to talk about fraction busting. Okay, so let's take a few notes. Fraction busting makes it easier to simplify or solve equations. So, fraction busting. It is just what it sounds like. You're gonna bust the fractions up. You wanna get rid of those fractions so that you can solve your equation easier. So let's look at step one. Look at every fraction in the equation. Focus on the bottom part of each fraction. So if you have a fraction, let's say we have 1/2. So we're gonna focus on the bottom part of the fraction. What is that bottom part of the fraction called? The denominator. The denominator. So using the denominators, we are going to find the least common denominator, or sometimes we call that an LCD. So let's go ahead and write that out fully so that we remember what it is. It is the least common denominator. The LCD. So what we're going to do is we are going to place that LCD above every term. And we'll go through this on the bottom if you're a little lost or unsure. Terms are pieces of the equation separated by plus and minus signs. Don't forget that. So the third step, after we have found our LCD and after we have placed that LCD above every term, our third step is using the LCD, you will bust the fraction by doing both M and D. M and D means multiply, then divide. So we're going to M and D. We're going to multiply and divide. Then using the LCD, you will only M multiply the constant numbers. So like I said, we're going to go through all of this. M and D, the fractions, means to multiply the LCD by the numerator, then divide that new number by the denominator. This process is the actual fraction busting phase. Okay, that was a lot. Let's go ahead and just work through an actual example of what this means. So our step one, we're going to look at every fraction in the equation. So looking at our example down here, let's look at every single fraction that we have. We have 2/3 x and we have 1/2. We're going to look at every fraction, 2/3 and 1/2. Focus on the bottom part of each of the fractions and we're going to look at the denominators. So our denominators are 3 and 2. And here are some helpful reminders over here that you can follow along. So each of those denominators, we had a 3 and we had a 2. So of those two denominators, what is going to be the LCD? A 3 and a 2. What can go into both 3 and 2 equally? A 6. So your least common denominator is going to be a 6. We're step 2. We're going to place that LCD above every term. So you can see that here in step 2 in our example. We put a 6 there, a 6 there, a 6 there, and a 6 there. Notice that we did not put a 6 above the parentheses. If you go back and you remember your term rules, this is all one big term because it has not been distributed. So don't forget and put one above the parentheses. You don't need to do that. Don't forget and accidentally do that. Only put it above that outside number. It might be a fraction. It might be a whole number. So make sure you only put it above that specific thing on the outside of the parentheses. Let's look at step 3. So step 3 up here says, using the LCD, you will bust the fraction by doing both M and D, multiply and divide. So the M and D is for fractions. Then you will only multiply if it's a constant, if it's a single number, constant or a coefficient. So you only do both multiply and divide on fractions. Let me show you that. So looking at this step, multiply and divide because this is a fraction. 6 times 2 would make 12. Then 12 divided by 3 makes 4. So that's how this whole entire piece turned into that 4x right there. We were able to bust it to become 4x. Now, because this second term is just a whole number, it's a constant, we were able to only multiply. So you do the double step, multiply then divide, when you have fractions. You only do the multiplication step when you have singular, like a constant or a coefficient, non-fraction terms. So that's how 6 and 4, that's how that became 24. Now right here, we have a fraction again. So we have to do the m and the d. We have to multiply and divide. So 6 times 1 makes 6. Then you take that new number, 6, and divide it by the denominator, 2. So that's how this turned in to a 3. We did not do anything inside of our parentheses because we have not distributed yet. And the last term is a whole number, so you only have to multiply there. You only have to multiply. So 6 times 2, that's how that became 12. Now, we just took this big fraction equation, we busted it by multiplying then dividing, or just multiplying, to become a more simple problem. Now, if you finish this out, don't forget you need to distribute, and that's how you have 3x there, and now how that 3 became a 9 because you distributed. And once you work the problem on down, you need to combine your like terms, so that's how that became 21. Then you subtract 3x on both sides, subtract 24 on both sides, and that's how you get your answer of -3, one solution. Also check out another fraction busting video that I have that should help you as well. Y'all have a great day.